All right, good morning. I almost said afternoon. It is afternoon for some of you. And welcome to the 2026 Business Planning Clinic. This will be a two-part series. Part one will happen today, and we'll go to the top of the hour. Part two will happen next Tuesday, the 11th, at this same time. And so before we jump in, I want to make some quick introductions for those of you that may be joining this call on the recording or here for the first time. This conversation is going to be facilitated today with me and my business partner, Selena Galanis. For those of you that don't know her, she's been in the industry close to 30 years. She's a master coach with Workman Success Systems and has worked with individual agents to teams and small independent brokerages all across the United States, and has a wealth of knowledge and vast experience around setting people up for success and having plans and systems that execute and work and help people take their businesses and lives to the next level. So, Selena, I'm super grateful that you're here today with us. Anything you want to add? What did I miss?
I think you
Oh,
got everything. Oh,
5 kids and a grandbaby.
yep. Of tiny importance, but yes. Lots of babies.
Yep. And for those of you that might just be meeting me for the first time, oh my goodness. Well, I got licensed in the end of 2004, started my real estate career in 2005. I joke and say the best thing about my real estate career that I got was my husband. Uh, the late Rick Jiha and his son Anthony is here on the call with us today, carrying on generation three in the business and always growing and iterating to the next level. So, one of the things that has been a constant and why we're here today is that we very much have a belief, a foundational belief in ongoing personal and professional development. And that as the promotion for this call went out, when we fail to plan, we plan to fail. And there's nothing wrong with failure. Failure is actually a really important part of success. However, failure in the form of negligence is a different kind of failure. And so we want to be really proactive. And a lot of people will come to the conversation that we're going to come to today and want to talk numbers and business and money. And that is very important. And we are going to get to all of that because money is a tool, and it's a tool that is an exchange of time and energy. And then when you receive it, it's a tool that's going to give you the ability to do things in your life and in your business, and things that you might not otherwise be able to do depending on how much you generate of it. And so the money conversation is really important for sure. And the more important conversation of that is the human suit, which is where we're going to start today's session on, because every single one of us brings a set of beliefs, a set of perspectives, a set of attitudes to our life and to our business. And what those beliefs and perspectives and attitudes are shape the amount of business that we do, the experience that we have as we go do that business, and ultimately what gets created. And so we're going to take two steps back, so to speak, before really starting to take multiple steps forward. For those of you that printed off the workbook, fantastic. If you did not print off the workbook, print it off or grab something to write on, something to write with. And where we're going to start today's conversation is giving you the opportunity to get clear in a different way. I'm going to invite you to look at the page in your workbook that is your blank canvas, and it literally is a picture frame with nothing in the middle. And most of us, when we think about business planning or we think about life, we're setting goals in different aspects or different areas. We will look at what we've done in the past and set goals based on the past. So in the context of our real estate sales business, we might look at, okay, well, how many transactions did we do in 2025? What was the average purchase price on those? What was the average commission on those? What did I net based on the business that I did? And based on that, I'm going to set some goals for 2026. Well, guess what? The same thing's happening in your life. Based on where I've lived my whole life, where is it possible for me to live? Or if I'm going to move up, how long is that going to take? And we'll set, we may be around fitness and health. Same thing. Okay, well, I'm this age, and for the last 90 days, I've been doing XYZ as it relates to my nutrition and my fitness. And here's what I've improved. Okay, I'm going to look at the next 90 days and see what's reasonable for me moving forward. We tend to set goals based on what we feel is realistic improvements from some benchmark or biomarker in the past. And why we're starting this part of the conversation, this is a really important part of the conversation to get in the context of business planning, because we're really talking life planning here. And I got introduced to this idea for the second time in 2020 when the entire world was shut down. And I was working with a coach at that time who said, I want you to go create your life and everything in it as though it's a blank canvas. Your husband's not on it. The house you live in is not on it. Nothing that you own today is on it. It's completely blank. And this concept ended up being very important. It took me 3 weeks to get through this exercise, not because I was procrastinating, but because this person said, I want you to really look at what is going on your canvas and why. And if it's based on your values and what's important to you, or if it's based on culture and society, or if it's based on what's important to your spouse, or if it's based on what's important to your parents, or if it's based on what your children want, how many of the things that end up in our lives are based on things outside of us, and therefore they're not really ours. There's things that we have taken on, and when we take on things that are not really ours, that we don't really want, there is an underlying resentment that sits below all of that. So we can go into our lives and we can be a great spouse, or, a great parent, or have a business that continues to move forward. But if the feeling that sits in your body when you go lay your head on the pillow every night is one where you're unfulfilled, unsatisfied, you don't have peace of mind, and joy has escaped you, it quite possibly could be an indication that what sits on the canvas that you currently have is a bunch of stuff that's not really actually based on you and what's important to you. So this is not in the context of being selfish. This is in the context of alignment and resetting. So I'm going to have and just invite you to take a moment. And as we look at 2026, if there's things that I want you to bring an awareness around, if there's things for you to let go and leave in 2025 that are no longer going to serve you based on the direction that you want to go in 2026, I want you to get present with what those things might be. And if 2026 is really a blank canvas where you're going to create something from nothing, which we're going to talk about the power of creating something from nothing versus something from the year before, start to think about what those things might possibly be. And I'm going to give you a second just to jot down a couple of them. Things that are really like, without regard to anyone or anything else, that maybe you haven't given yourself permission to put on your canvas that's important to you. You don't need to know how it's going to happen. We're not reverse engineering plans. I just want you to get some concepts and ideas of if you were to feel more fulfilled as a result of what's on there, if it was to bring you more joy as a result of what's on there, if it was to have you feel more aligned as a result of what's on there, what would you add to that canvas? And then if we could come back off of the workbook into so I can see everybody's faces. Just in starting this conversation, this concept, this idea, I would love to get some shares or whatever you might want to share on what you might be experiencing right now or what's come up for you in this concept of actually creating from a blank canvas.
I'll share. I didn't know if we were putting things that we were adding or taking away, but I wrote a couple of things that are both. This is my fifth year in real estate, and my year has been okay. I've done 12 deals so far, but I also have another consulting business, and I just made the decision to leave that behind because it was stressing me out every time I had a meeting coming up that I had to kind of put real estate to the side. And so I just submitted my resignation letter yesterday morning to some really big clients that I bring in a lot of money. But at 55 years old, I don't want to be running from one thing to the next. I need free time to nurture myself and pamper myself so that I'm good when I'm doing my real estate, which I love, right? So for me, I put free time on what I was adding to the new year, and just creating a more positive space for myself at home.
I love that.
Yeah.
I want to highlight one thing that you said, which is that you said you did 12 deals this year. And then what you said after that was, which is okay. And so my question for you is okay compared to what?
Compared to what I want it to be.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a really important in this piece of the conversation when we look around creating a business plan, right?
Hmm.
A lot of times when we look at our point A of where we're at, called, let's call it 2025, and we render judgments or assessments based on whatever that has been, it's always important to ask the question compared to what? So when you said that and you said I've done 12 transactions this year and you're like, which is okay. And immediately I thought to myself, well, compared to what? Compared to the 81% of realtors that in 2024 did zero transactions, compared to the national average for agents that do 2.4 transactions, or compared to a top producer that's doing 70 or 80 transactions, right?
Right.
And so, when we go into this business planning space, my experience quite often with entrepreneurs is it never is fast enough, big enough, or you know it takes too long, right? And
Yeah.
so for the purpose of getting really clear on the experience that you want to have, which it sounds like you're getting clear around having time and space, which is why you're letting go of some other things to let more in the context of growing and building your business in 26 and your life in 2026. Uh,
Yeah.
be present to the fact that uh, in relation to what? And is that comparison going to propel me forward in ways that are going to improve the experience that I'm having? Or is it possibly going to be a conversation where I could beat myself up about not being enough compared to XYZ and invite you into a conversation that is fulfilling, that is inspiring, that is about growth and continuing to move things forward. So thank you very much for sharing that. And it's a great awareness and a great place to start the conversation. Now, before we jump back to the workbook, which Selena and I are going to have, a little conversation, we're going to take some turns around it, is that there is, how many of you have watched a movie that, like, what, just favorite movie?
Titanic.
Titanic. Oh my goodness. Okay. Who else? What's one of your favorite movies?
The holiday.
The Holiday. Okay.
Yeah.
Sound of Music.
Sound
Terminal,
of Music. Okay.
the terminal,
Which one?
the terminal. That's a Tom Hanks
Oh,
movie.
The
Where he's
Terminal.
stuck
Yes.
at the terminal and he
Yep.
can't, like, he's in no man's land.
Yep. Okay. So, Brooke, I'm going to go to your example of the Titanic. When the boat is going down, and we know that the boat is going down, and it's halfway through the movie, and everything is going sideways, and you're seeing that movie for the first time, what's the feeling?
This is so terrible.
It's so terrible, right? But if we go to the end of the movie and there's a survivor that's telling the story of it, it doesn't change the terribleness of it, but there's a survivor, right? And so if you know the end of the movie before the movie starts is a totally different experience watching it. And so I want you to each translate this to your business and thinking about where you're at right now in your career. We're going to narrow it down to, specifically a conversation around 2026. However, if you have a very clear picture of what we'll call in the workbook the end in mind, and I'm not going to go into, reading all of that. I'm going to talk about more the concept of that. If you know the end of the movie and you're clear on what it is that you want to create and what you want to be experiencing in your business, then everything that happens between now and that point is just going to be what happens between now and that point. And if you know the end of the movie, and this is going to start inviting everyone to get clear as we think like, okay, we're fast forwarding to the end of 2026, and what do you want to be celebrating in, rejoicing about, the experience that you've had, and you're clear on the end of the movie for that picture. We're going to go out to, longer time frames and shorter time frames and all that stuff. But for whatever that point is that represents for you, then what it allows you to do is release all the stuff that's going to happen in between, go and do the work, and know that like wherever you're at in the process, and what's inevitable is the end of the movie is the end of the movie that you've set up, and that's the direction that you're heading. And so in this context of setting goals, there's 3 books that are really important. Number 1 is The Gap and the Gain by Benjamin Hardy. Dr. Benjamin Hardy, how many of you have read that book? Okay, about half of the people on the call. That is how you measure your progress. So I want these concepts to be in your head, because if you look at how you measure your process in The Gap, Jean-Marie, which is, well, I did 12, which is okay because I wanted to do 30, versus the gain of, wow, I did 12. And what did I do the 4 years before? And what did I do that concurrent with? And how far I've come, which is the gain, how many gains you've made over that period of time. When you start to stack gains of how far you've come versus how far you have to go to where you want to get to, how you interact with your goals and what you feel about your business and your life are going to look totally different. So Gap in the Game by Benjamin Hardy, really important from a concept perspective, and to how to regulate a long-term business and a journey in entrepreneurship for sure. The second book is 10X is Easier Than 2X. How many of you have read that? Dr. Benjamin Hardy, another favorite. And the concept behind that is that if you think about the 12 deals that you did this last year, Jean-Marie, and I'm using you as an example because you were so happy to share, and now I have you as an example to use, you did those 12 deals and you think about, oh, well, if I want to do 24 in 2026, it's double the time, double the energy, double the . And if you're already feeling overwhelmed and you need more time and space, now that becomes a stressor, thinking about doubling, which leads to burnout, versus a 10X is easier than 2X approach, which is the person that goes out and does 50 transactions versus the one that does 12, by way of example. They're going to physically change themselves, who they are and how they show up, right? So that concept and how that relates to business, really important. So I want you guys to think about that, and ideally get some time between now and next week to get these concepts really in your head before you go set your business plan when we look at numbers next week. And then the third piece is The Science of Scaling. I have not read it. Selena tells me it's fantastic, and it is still on my to-read list. However, everyone here is here because they want to grow and take things to the next level. No one needs a class on how to contract and become smaller or less, right? That's easy. You just take your foot off the gas and go find a beach and a pina colada somewhere. And ta-da, you're done. You have arrived. Okay, so I'm going to pause before we move into what's next, which is some mindset stuff that Selena and I are going to have a conversation back and forth around. And just any thoughts, feelings, or kind of ahas or different awarenesses as we're going into this part of the conversation.
My thought is, when I think about, okay, 12, great. The previous years, I always did 68 deals, 68 deals. So I'm happy with my 12, but my goal is 24 to 30. And so the reason I'm giving up the other stuff is because I feel I can do 24 to 30 with good processes in place. And that's what I haven't set up at all, is a process where it's easier. I do the same thing each transaction for buyers and sellers. And so my mindset is in how to set it up finally. Like I'm taking business planning more serious this year because I want to have to grow something real. I want a business structure for real estate finally. Like I'm thinking there has to be an easier way, right? So
So
that's what I'm thinking.
yeah, what you're talking about is the difference from working in the business to
Yeah.
working on the business,
Right.
right? Working in the business is responding to the calls, the appointments, writing
Yeah.
the contracts, getting the deals through. That's working in the business. Working on the business is the piece now in year 5, like you're 5 years in, you're like, okay, if I really am going to, and this brings up an important principle that Selena, if you'll bring up the truth slide on the workbook. This is a visual specifically of what you're referencing, Jean Marie, is that you've done what you've done, those 6 to 8, now 12 transactions based on your current abilities. And now in order for you to take things to the next level, this is a great visual that talks about exactly that process that you're talking about and the
Yeah.
importance of doing it, right? And so
Yeah.
each person's at a different place in their journey and their business and their life. And I'm going to suggest that as the inside goes, so the outside goes, right? So what's ever going on internally is going to show up physically, externally, because we bring ourselves to every situation. Okay, so we've gone through that truth. We've gone through beginning with the end in mind and the places where you're starting to identify, okay, there may be some gaps and some things for me to focus on. Let's go to the next piece. And Selena, because of how many people that you've coached and coach and the conversations that you're in, I would love for you to cover the concepts and ideas around the 6 myth understandings that sit out there for, well, for all of us actually, right?
But hey guys. So a lot of times, when we're going through these things, we have this belief. And Jean Marie, I was just thinking about something as you said, that I want to do more, I want to do better. And by the way, that is the mindset of any entrepreneur. It's never quite enough. It's never quite enough. And so these are some of the most popular things we hear, right? Like, I can't do it. Well, how would you know? Like, I can't door knock. How would you know? You might be incredible at door knocking. You might be really, really amazing at door knocking. But these are things we tell ourselves because of a prior experience, or maybe we heard someone else's bad experience, whatever that is. You may be just like, think about the first time that a kid got on a bike, right? I have a 14-year-old who still won't get on one with 2 wheels, right? And his answer is always, I can't do it. I can't do it. And the other day we saw a little kid riding one on Halloween, and it's like a 2-year-old over there riding the bike, and he said, I can't do it. And I said, you're not trying. The difference is that we actually have to give it you might be an incredible bike rider, who knows, right? Okay, one of my favorites, it can't be done in my market. Or there's another way that this is being said a lot, but my market is so different. My market is so different. As coaches, Tracy is a fellow coach that's on this call as well, and we hear this all the time. That can't be done here. My market is so much different than everyone else's. It's really not. It's really not. It just might mean you have to approach it a little bit differently, right? For those of us that are following everything in the marketplaces all across the country right now, we see that Florida's market is a completely different market than California's. They are worlds apart. You just have to have a different approach to handling real estate there. So we tell ourselves, or we believe these myths that are told to us, or something that we read, right? Some article somewhere that tells us that something is so much different. And in reality, everything is possible with just a different approach. I love this, Jean Marie, because again, we're just going to use you all day. I hope you know that that's why you came today.
That's fine. That's fine. Well, I have 2 deals in contract, so change the 12 to 14.
Woo, I
We're
love
good.
it. Excellent. The year is not over yet.
It's not over.
It would take too much time and effort, and I would lose my freedom, right? So you already made a decision based on what you wanted to open up for yourself. And then sometimes we think that it might take too much time or effort to learn something new, right? So that's always something holding us back. We have this belief that it's going to take longer. And in some cases, it can take a while, but usually in our mind, we're creating a story that it's much harder or longer than it's going to be, right? And we don't know that until we really dig into that. That's not what decides our success. And let's be real, and in where we are now, we can learn things faster than we ever have before. We can implement things faster than we ever have before. AI has brought that in. I learned something yesterday by plugging it into ChatGPT, and I said, tell me everything I need to know about this particular thing. And I was like, holy moly, I'm now an expert. I'm not an expert, but like in my mind, I told myself I was an expert. I was like, normally it would be like reading books and taking courses and doing all of these different things. And now we have this ability to really grasp something so much faster. So if that's the story that you have going on in your head, just know that there's probably a different answer. There's probably a different answer. It's too risky or I'll lose my money. Okay. We lead with revenue all the time. So recently I had someone asking me if they could do something inside of their business. And I said, I need to know that you've implemented what you had there before. And I was giving them the advice that right now they have 4 CRMs. I'm not kidding, guys. 4 CRMs. and they said, oh, now I want to implement this other thing. I'm like, you can't possibly do that. I can see your lead flow is incredible and nobody's handling anything. Okay, so when you look at everything that you're trying to do, I want you to determine whether or not you've earned anything from it. And if you haven't, get rid of it. Or if you're not doing anything with what's being done with what's coming in, get rid of it, right? And then if the risk is there, right? If the risk is there, but you've done the research, you've done the math, you know exactly like what that's going to look like, and that you're going to implement what you've taken on that risk, that commitment to taking on that risk, then you're not losing money. And in coaching, we talk about any investment that you make, it needs to make 3 times that investment you need to earn. So you have to stop and look back at it and say, how many transactions would I have to close to make this investment worth it? If you're looking at it through that lens all the time, it's okay, but you better know what that number is. And so the same exact person, I said, great, if you want to implement this new thing and we take away other things, how many closings would you need to have to feel like you had gotten 3x? So we sat down, what's your average price point? What's your commission? How much are you earning actually take home from that? Okay, we need to close 3 deals. And they're like, oh, 3 deals isn't so bad. I'm like, okay, so is the risk worth it? Right? Because we've done the research and we know that it's just not a nebulous thing out there. Number 5 is one of my absolute favorites. My clients will only work with me. Only I can deliver quality service. This is for anyone who's ever thought about starting a team or hiring a showing assistant or anything like that. But they're hiring me. They won't work with anyone else. I have to do all the showings. I have to do all the listings. I have to do everything because it's me. Okay. They're loyal to you, yes. But if you've created a standard that all of those people follow as well, they're really getting you. At the end of the day, they're still getting you because you've taught someone, you've trained someone. Debbie was on a call yesterday. I run the A's to Z's of building a real estate team on Mondays, the first Monday of every month. And it was a conversation about starting a small team. There was someone in New York on there. And I said, great, before you do it, core values, mission statement, how you want to operate your business. All of that is in place before you even make the first hire, because that way they are operating just like you would. They're learning from you. They know what's important to you, and they're going to do that. And then there's no disparity behind, oh, this is my, and you're always going to say, this is my team member. They operate just like me, right? And if I'm always here in case you have a question or there's something that you need. So don't believe that you can't grow or scale in that way, because hopefully they're just a walking extension of you, right? That's really what it becomes. And then having a goal and not fulfilling it is a negative thing. Look, I remember seeing Tom Ferry years ago stand on a stage and he was like, what's your goal? And the guy's like 30. And he's like, what if I made it 300? And the guy looked like he was going to pass out right there in the audience. It's like 30 to 300. It's so big. And he's like, okay, but if you made the goal 300 and you worked as though you were aiming towards 300 and you hit 200, it's still more than the 30. It's the act of actually trying to achieve it that is more important than you hanging yourself up on the goal. The ultimate thing is to do the activities. If you don't try them at all, then that's a problem. But if you can set that goal high, I mean, Rick would always call it, a lot of people call them this BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goal, right? You set a big, hairy, audacious goal. What's the worst case scenario if you meet half of it? If it was really, truly audacious and big, and you were thinking every single day, I'm going to do the activities that get me there. A book that Casey didn't mention that I do recommend for everyone is The 12-Week Year. And let me tell you why. When you say I want to do 24 transactions in 1 year and you don't do the activities in January and you don't do the activities in February, you're giving yourself permission to keep moving them to the next month. Okay, you just keep, I'll make it up next month. I've got time. There's still 10 months left. I got this, no biggie. 12-week year is work on the goals that have to be done and completed in 12 weeks. Okay, you have less time to give yourself permission to fail, right? I hope that makes sense. Any thoughts, questions, feedback on what we've gone over?
Or give yourself less time or permission to procrastinate.
Realtors don't procrastinate. What? Are you crazy? there's none of that happens here. Debbie. Right. So listen, we all wake up every day with different stories, right? Every single day. You just have to decide, like, am I going to push through the story? Am I going to make my own story? All right. And then you've got the reward on the other side of that. So don't get caught up in what you believe is the truth. You can create your own. You can truly create your own. All right, Casey, where do you want to zip to next? Anybody else have any thoughts or feedback on that before we? No? Everybody's good? Everybody's going to go out and do crazy, amazing things, and they're not even going to tell themselves it's not possible? Excellent. It's my favorite kind of day. Okay. Let's see. Casey, do you want me to just keep going into this, or what do you want to do?
I'll jump in on this one.
Yeah.
And then, so there's the ways that we do think, and you can look at your life right now, the results that you have in every area of your life, and it will be a reflection of the way that you think. And there's a saying that results, sometimes harsh, are always fair. So every result that you have in every area of your life is based on the way that you think. Because the way that you think drives your behavior, and your behavior repeated over time creates the result that it creates, and those become habits, which become, the larger outcomes, right? But that all goes down at the very foundation to how we each think drives our behavior. And so some of us are aware of the ways that we think. And the concept that I would like to introduce is, what is going to be most effective for me to think to create the outcome that I want to create? And it might not be the way that you think right now. So if there was a way to think differently for me to create a different outcome, what would I be thinking differently to create that outcome? And start to ask yourself that question. Because if I think there's not enough business, because, well, in 2025 and 2024, there's close to 4 million transactions that happened in the US versus 7 million, which would normally be happening on any other given year. I might think there's not enough business, and so I might justify the fact that I'm doing less business than I want to do. Is that way of thinking going to is going to serve me in creating expansion in my business, or is it going to create contraction in my business? And so what would be a different way of thinking of it? Could be something as simple as, it doesn't matter now, it never will matter how many transactions are happening in the US. Winners win. And so I'm going to work harder, think differently, and go out and create the business that I want to create, regardless of what's happening in the environment around me. And now, what kind of behavior does that drive? Versus, I just had, this was on the news, and then my client said this, and they're, expert this, and you get sucked into these narratives and dialogues of the ways that people think that are not aligned with what you want to create. So the question is, looking for that alignment, is the way that you're currently thinking going to support the outcome you want to create, or is it going to keep you from it? Right. And then if we look at just briefly these foundations, is the foundational thinking is, I think this is a highly controversial thing, because there's been times in my life when I've had a big why, and there's been times in my life when I haven't. and I've created during both sets of circumstances, right? So if you have a big why and you're motivated, inspired, and you have this big vision, fantastic. And if you don't, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to be successful and grow a great business and have a fantastic 2026. It just means that maybe right now you're not really clear on a super big why. So what? Don't let that be a thinking that has you do nothing or have you play small because you don't get out of bed in the morning with a fire under your feet and in your belly and wake up and you don't need an alarm, right? So I'm going to push back on that foundational way of thinking to say, if you've got a big why and you're clear on it, fantastic. If you don't use that as an excuse or justification. Get clear on the vision of what you want to create in this next year and hold the space for a big why to come along or become clear if it's not. If you're thinking bigger, this is the other foundational piece of it, and have larger goals, the models that you're using are going to be really important. And so one of the communications that we're sending out is business assessments to all of our friends in the realtor community to sit down and have a conversation about the numbers of your business, how you're running your business, what the platform you're running it over is yielding you, and comparing that to what's possible. And if there's places for you to take that to the next level, if you pivot and didn't even realize that that was possible for you. So those are some foundational things. And then under the supportive ways of thinking or being, before we get into like actually doing some of the work in the workbook, is what's possible. What is possible, right? In 2014 and 2015 and 2016, Rick and I were asking a really crazy question. How do, over the next 5 to 7 years, we recreate what took 30 years and then some? That is a question of possibility. That's a question of the science of scaling. That's a question of the gap in the gain. That's a question that sits in a place of creating something from nothing that's never been created before. Because in no realistic universe could, over 5 to 7 years, could you create something that took 30 years to create and then some, except for that we did, because we started asking that question. So when your thinking is coming from a place of what's possible versus what's realistic based on something that's happened in the past, your approach and how you view things is going to be totally different. And so getting present to what's possible versus getting sucked into everything coming from the past and then deciding what's possible based on that is a different frame to look through, a different lens to look through. And it takes diligence to go, oh, am I thinking impossibility right now? Or am I thinking based on what I see as realistic, based on what I've experienced in the past, right? And then action. Action, regardless of how small, it is the direction that you're moving. It is the direction that you're moving. Sometimes you're going to be in massive action. Sometimes you're going to be in trickling action. What is the action that you're taking in the direction that you're moving? The biggest thing is when there's no action, right? So there's times when we sprint and there's times when we walk. And there's times when we crawl. But what direction is that action in, and making sure that those align? Those are, check-ins. Thinking without fear. I don't think that exists. I think it's more about using fear as an ally. Right? And how you use that fear or that uncertainty, which, oh, by the way, also feels like excitement, feels the exact same in the body. Fear and excitement, if you notice that, like they feel exactly the same in your physiology. It's just a matter of if you call it excitement or if you call it fear. The butterflies in the stomach, your nervous system going a little wonky, like, like I just had a coffee, and that fear feeling, well, that's just could easily be as excitement. Again, we're checking in on how we think and what that lens is. And then progress, success, I've taken from Earl Nightingale's definition of it, which is forward progress towards worthy goals, and that's success. So if you want to be successful, did you make forward progress today towards goals that were worthy for you? Strategy is going to be important, and standards. If you really want to grow and scale something, at the end of the day, we're in a relationship business and we're serving people. And in that, it's a great check-in. Like, how did I serve today? Who did I serve today? And how can I serve at a higher level? So these are the mindsets that are really important when you go into thinking about, okay, if I'm going to create, what if in 2026 you create something that you've never created before and you blow your own mind? I mean, so much so that at the end of the year, you're like, wow, like really proud of yourself, not from a prideful place, but from a place of like really acknowledging. And that's what's possible for every person that is here today. Okay, so let's roll down to doing some of the actual strategic plan work. And here's what I want to say about this. How many of you know what stream of consciousness writing is? Selena, tell them.
Casey introduced this to me, and I'm still getting better at it because my analytical mind doesn't think that way. But it's like when you sit down, and I have this, for those of you that don't have it, so I just keep a completely different planner. All this is empty notes, and that is where my stream of consciousness goes into. So it's like just everything that's coming out of my head. I don't worry. Look at you, Kim's got it. I don't worry about punctuation. I don't worry about whether or not it's spelled right. I just worry about getting every single thing that's going through my mind, and then it just keeps building, right? So like I might be getting something out, and then that then pushes another thought, which pushes another thought, and I just keep writing it out and keep writing it out. And don't overthink it. If you're like me, sometimes you're going to feel a little hiccup because your brain's going to tell you this isn't right. It's not spelled correct. I didn't use a paragraph, whatever that is. Just get it out. Casey, go ahead. Sorry.
Yep. No, I love it. So we're going to start off with number 2, and I want you guys to just jot some stuff down because life is more important than business. Because would you all agree that we're building businesses to support the lives that we want to live? Yeah. So let's start with life. And in the next 5 years, I want you to replace the word achieve. What do you want to have experienced in the next 5 years? Experiences that you want to have, and it may be your day-to-day living experience. I want you to recontextualize achievement to experience. And just if anything's possible, what do you want to have experienced in the next 5 years or by the end of the next 5 years? And just whatever comes out, just write it down. You can go back and add stuff more thoughtful later. We want to get the juices flowing.
I want to make sure everyone understands that these business plans are not meant to be concrete. You should have this with you for the next year, and you're changing, editing, auditing, adding, use a pencil if it makes more sense. Like it stays with you because you're going to hear or see or think something that you're going to want to add to it. Now you make me want to change the workbook, Casey, to experience and not achieve.
Well, things kind of come out sometimes. So here's the reason why I say that is because entrepreneurs are driven by achievement, right? And so we have this internal thing, achieve, achieve, achieve. And in the achievement, we can hit all of the achievements and never have any of the fulfillment or joy, but we've hit all the achievements. And if we change the word achieve to experience, like the experiences generally are the ones that are enriching, that we have great feelings about. And the achievements have led to those experiences, but it's just a different lens to look through. For me, it makes it something I want to engage with more versus like that. The younger me would be like, achieve, achieve, achieve. And the 50-year-old me is like, no, this is really about experience. So I've got to like, what do I move forward to create the experiences that I want to have?
Kim, it looked like you had a question or something you wanted to say. You want to come off mute? Oh, you're muted, Kim.
I was just gonna say, those dream boards that you put together of like what you want to achieve for the next year?
Yep.
I remember doing one of these and I thought, oh, this is just kind of a waste of time. But I did really think about what I wanted to achieve. And I had this large like collage up on my wall. And at the end of a year, I had achieved every single thing on that board. So it really does work. It's like just, you look at it and you don't even have to have the plan exactly, but when you know what you want to achieve, it happens a lot of times.
I love that.
And I kind of laughed at the end of the year. I was like, wow, I don't even know if I want to throw that out.
Yeah,
Sure,
so
keep it.
there's a reason why that's so powerful. The language of the mind is pictures and images. It's not
Right.
words, right? And so when we have visual things that represent those things and they are there, that is where our attention and our intention and our focus naturally is drawn to, which makes that so powerful. All right, so jotting down, what do you want to achieve or experience in your business in the next 5 years? And then focusing in and narrowing that down to 2026. And here's what I would say. Sometimes this is a lens that I look at it through. what is it in 2026 that I'm going to create more, different, or better in my business? So if we go back to Jean-Marie, she's getting a business plan and systems in place. So working on the business would be a thing that she could put down. For some people, it may be, you know, double or tripling your transactions. For other people, it may be finding whoever's going to be the perfect transaction coordinator for you. Whatever that is will be, you know, different to each person. And then in your life in 2026, if you fast forwarded to the end of 2026 and just knew that you had nailed it, knocked it out of the park, what would that look like? And so there's different aspects to life. There's mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, financial. And start to think about those things. Also known as family, faith, fun, friends, and fitness. Go ahead, Selena.
No, I was gonna say I leave off fitness and I say food, but that's because I love to bake. I'm like I don't do the fitness, I do the food side.
All right. So as we're kind of looking at these things and starting to get clear, maybe you're 100% clear, maybe this is a process and you getting clear. The objective around this conversation is that everything gets created twice. It gets created once in your mind and then it gets created second in reality. And if you haven't taken the time to do the work of creating it in your mind, the chances of you creating it in reality are slim to none. And so, you know, the watch you're wearing, Brooke, the hat you have on, that got created in somebody's mind before it ever got created in reality. If somebody hadn't created that in their mind, it wouldn't exist on your head today the way that it does. Right? And so as you look at these different aspects of your life, that faith could be spirituality, whatever that means to you, fun, what you're doing to have fun, who are the relationships. Maybe it's time for some friendectomies, right? Maybe there's people in your life that aren't meant to be in the next chapter because they're not they don't want to grow the way that you want to grow, right? And so maybe it's about protecting your space and doing some house cleaning on those relationships or just setting a different context for those relationships, right? Maybe they're relationships, but they don't have as much access. Or maybe there's people that you know that you want to be more closely aligned with in the context of relationships that if you had more of those people in your life, you know that it would be good, right? It's going to be good for your mind, your soul, your spirit, your business, everything. And so how do you intentionally get more time and space around those people? Those can be, you know, important questions to be asking yourself. Fitness. If you look at what happens in nature, the less something moves, the sooner it dies. The less something moves, the sooner it dies. So what if you were to look at fitness instead of being like, oh, I'm not going to be an athlete. We don't, you know, okay, maybe you want to be an athlete. That's fine. But what if your fitness became quality of life and how you manage stress and how you experience living in your body? And what if that became your fitness and what supported that? And then finances, right? This is another relationship. And I was having a conversation with someone that is and that's a professional speaker, and he was saying, you know, I'm doing 2 to 3 million a year, but my peers are doing 30 to 50 million a year. And I want to get to that space. And I said to him, I said, well, okay, a couple of questions for you. What are you going to do with 30 to 50 million a year? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, that's probably why you're not making it. Because if you understand finances, money needs a job to do. And so until you've given jobs to warrant having 30 to 50 million a year, there's no way that you're going to generate 30 to 50 million a year. It doesn't work like that. And then, oh, by the way, what's your relationship with it right now? And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, for the 2 to 3 million you're making, are you ahead of things or behind the 8 ball? He's like, I'm behind the 8 ball. I'm like, great. So if you're making 30 to 50 million, you're still going to be behind the 8 ball because of your relationship to those things. So is there work to do in that space? Right? He's like, yeah, obviously there's work for me to do in that space, right? There's plenty of people that make 30 to 50 million a year that can't pay their bills and have tax bills like through the roof. And you would think, oh, well, that wouldn't happen to those people because they make plenty of money. It's never about the amount of money. It's about the relationship to it, right? So as you start to look at those things for you, are there places to grow, learn, adjust in that? Selena, do you want to hit on core values and mission statement?
Yeah, I'll try to do it quickly because I know we're running out of time.
Yeah.
I tell people to do this early on, and there's a couple of different reasons. Whether you ever want to have a team or you're just operating on your own, it doesn't really matter. I want you to write down the words that you value the most about how you perceive yourself, how you want people to perceive you, how you want to run your business, everything. And guys, don't put a ton of words down. And then you're going to see that several of them mean the same things. But this becomes important because it should be on your website. It should be in your listing agreement. It should be in your buyer's agreement, like all of those presentation, not agreement. That way it's everything that you embody or that you want someone to have an experience of you. And it's because you're thinking about it all the time. If you're recruiting team members, it should be in that packet as well. Right? It starts to become everything about us. There was a point where in New York with the team that I was working with up there, we actually made it into wallpaper and stuck it on the wall. And it was like you walked in the front door and it was like the very first thing that you saw. And it was also how we congratulated people on the team. We were like, wow, you really gave this value today. Like we really saw it and experienced it. And then your mission statement as well. I want you to think about, why are you in business? What makes you different than everyone else? What's your unique value proposition? And what do I want to be known for? Like if someone was referring me, I just handled a listing and that person's referring me to their best friend, what do I want them to say about me? Like, what is that? And don't make it some big giant paragraph, right? It needs to be like an elevator pitch. You've got like 20 seconds to say something about what you want people to have as far as an experience of who and what you do for people in the real estate industry and all of the customers that you serve. So there's some examples in here, right? And then at the end of it, I want you to really kind of get that down to maybe like 2 sentences, 3 sentences. Rick did, in case you did great, it was like 1. It's very easy. Improving the lives and businesses of all we serve.
And here's the beautiful news. I'm going to bring this into the conversation, is that ChatGPT, you could put all of the brain dump of whatever those core values are and say, chat, look at the 50 things I just put here and give me the ones that of all of the 50 are the 3 most powerful that represent all of it. Right. And so you don't have to spend a lot of time analyzing it. Use technology as your friend to help you do that. Right. You can do the same thing. You can hit record on your phone and just start talking about what you think your mission is. And you can take that recording and then get it in text form, go upload that to ChatGPT and, summarize this into one short paragraph that's 5 sentences and the essence of it, and continue to refine it. Use technology as your friend. And then in that, the last piece, which is, and we're going to go 1 or 2 minutes past the top of the hour here, is the SWOT analysis. So in the context of what there is to do before we come back to the call next week, is number 1, check your thinking. Is it aligned with where you want to go? Start to get clearer, creating from possibility, that blank canvas of what's really important to you, creating something from nothing, not something based on what you've done in years past, and then getting clear 5 years out, what's the end of the movie, and playing that back till today, and then really taking an assessment in all areas of your life of where you want to grow and improve, right? It's not just about being successful in business, or it's not just about being successful personally. It's really about having it all, because that's what's possible for every person on this call, is to really have a life by design, and one that you're inspired and motivated to live. As you get clear on your core values, I'm going to invite you to come back to the call next week, clear on what those are and prepared to share maybe 2 or 3 core values that you've landed on as a result of doing that experience. And then if you have a mission statement, or maybe you're going through an identity shift, right? Maybe you had a business partner, you no longer have a business partner. Maybe you have a spouse and they passed away and you were in business together and now it's you, right? That could be a time to update the mission statement. Like, what do you want to stand in moving forward, right? I'm doing some of that work right now. And get really clear on that, so that foundation is in place coming into the conversation next week. And then here's the fun piece, which is to go and ask a handful of people for feedback. And their feedback is not right or wrong. Their feedback is feedback based on what their experiences of you, for the opportunity for you to learn. And it's called the SWOT analysis, which is your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Selena, do you want to give just a high level of this, and then?
Yep,
to
I want to make sure that you guys understand that one side is internal, the other side is external, and it does a great job of explaining it here, but I want to make sure that you know what that means when you're going in. External opportunities are like what's shifting and changing around you. I'm going to give you an example. It's you live somewhere and there's an amazing shopping center being developed and there's new construction over there, right? Like, so that is an external opportunity that you could look into that would create something for you, right? It's like changes in technology, AI, incredible external opportunity that's available to all of us now. External threats might be the same thing. There's a great big shopping center going next door and it's going to impact traffic and people want to get out, right? So you have to look at both situations and say it could be an opportunity, it could be a threat. It's going to depend on how you look at it. These are truly external. Okay, the internal stuff I want you to work on as like, what are your individual strengths and weaknesses? And I'm going to implore you, you're going to see there's lots of blank pages in here. You need to be filling one out. If you have a spouse or a partner, they should fill one out for you. If you have people that you work with regularly in your team, in your organization, if you have employees, even a TC, anything like that, ask everyone to fill it out and then be open to the feedback. Okay, because people's experiences of us are different than how we are actually experiencing it. And sometimes we need that eye opener. So be open to it, ask them to be honest and truthful, not mean, but truthful and honest. If it's your spouse, you're going to just automatically take it as mean, so try not to. And like be open to the feedback and then come back with it. And we'll work on what you can do with it from there on the next session.
Perfect. And so next week, we're going to jump right into like the actual nuts and bolts of the business building piece. We're going to talk about the 4 different areas that you're sourcing your business from and why it's important to have 4 that you're growing and developing and building over the time. We're going to actually do the numbers from a business perspective and then some integration. So please take the time between now and next week to go do the homework and spend some time with this first half, getting really clear for you. Here's what I want to say. How many people ever find themselves being confused? Like, oh, I'm just confused. And so we stall. Confusion quite often is avoidance. Confusion quite often is avoidance. So if you find yourself being confused as you're looking at it, like, what if I'm not confused? What if I'm actually just avoiding this right now? And then once you have that awareness, lean into it, go spend the time and energy as a gift to yourself and get this foundational piece in place so that when we come back to part 2 next week to actually look at the nuts and bolts of the business, you've got the most important thing in place, which is the foundation of you, the human suit that we all wear. Wherever we go, there we are, right? And there's no getting around taking the time to do the physical work and the time and energy in the physical work in that space. So I invite you all to do that. Take whatever time you need for it and come back ready to go next Tuesday. Selena, thank you for co-facilitating with me and for everyone that showed up. We'll have the recording that goes out so that you have a review of it. If you'd like, feel free to share it with anyone that you want, and all are welcome on the call next week. If you have people that you think would benefit from getting clearer, give them the recording so they can do the homework on the first part. They'll need to register to get the workbook on that registration link, and then we'll see you all next Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Make it a great day, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you, guys.